Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm sorry my lighting is. I don't know why I keep apologizing like you guys care, but my lighting's all messed up. And hopefully my sound doesn't mess up in this video because I just have been having technical difficulties. There's cat hair all over the pop filter on this microphone. So we'll just ignore that. So today's video, I don't really have much of a weekly update for this week, but I did have something that I really think would be an interesting conversation starter among me and you guys and each other. Okay. And that is, how do you feel about books taking from each other? Now, there is a couple of definitions that I would like to look up before I start. So the first one would be plagiarism. So, what exactly is plagiarism? What's the actual definition of the word? And that would be the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own. The next definition that I would like to talk about is derivative. Very popular word on this space right now. And it says typically of an artist or work of art, imitative of the work of another person, and usually disapproved of for that reason. Also, as a noun, because that's the adjective, as a noun, it's something that is based on another source. And those are two things that, bounce around on YouTube a lot. And the book I'd like to talk about today, well, it's kind of what made me think about this subject, and it is Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio. And I want to start off to say I don't think he's plagiarized and I don't think that he's derivative, but I do want to talk about the things that have come from this book that I've seen that are directly taken out of something else. And I don't know how I feel about it, and I want you guys to let me know how you feel about it and how you feel about it in other works. So Dune obviously is not a stranger to being derivative. Well, I would say Frank Herbert is not a stranger to taking things for his story, because I was doing the research, and you can go ahead and research it for yourself, but Dune takes a lot of influences from other things. And I don't remember, it was someone in my comments on one of my weekly updates who said, Dune takes from this specific book. And I was like, well, it's interesting how if we're further away from the source of what is being taken, we seem to care less about it. Or maybe it's just me, but I feel closer to Dune. I feel like Dune is closer to today. It wasn't published too terribly long ago. That we are able to see the very specific things that Christopher Ruocchio took from Dune. And I do want to list off some of these things. And one is saying house something. So there's House Marlowe is the Empire of Silence, and I think it was House Atreides for Dune. And I don't know if this is specific to sci-fi. It's probably not. It could be even a real world thing, but I don't know. It's just something that I'm like, okay, these are at least in both of these works. Do they come from something else? I don't know. And I'm not claiming to know everything. Trust me, I don't. Enrichment crawlers, which are just crawlers in Dune. They're also called sand crawlers or something like that. I forget. The mentats in Dune are like the Solace in Empire of Silence are basically the mentats from Dune. The Solace being like Tor Gibson and things like that. Basically kind of like human computers. Some forms and things of technology being banned, but I think that is probably a common theme in sci-fi. Signet rings. The whole beginning of Empire of Silence, and none of this is spoilers, by the way. The whole beginning scene is like a dueling scene, which is exactly what happens in Dune. And the vibe of it felt very similar. But I feel like there's some more stuff. Oh, the shields. The shields is the most obvious. That's not even taken inspiration from. That is directly taken out of. And I would say that all these elements that I just mentioned were taken out of Dune. Not Christopher Ruocchio taking inspiration from, but him directly taking these elements out. But what I find interesting is part of me wanted to feel a certain type of way about it. Part of me wanted to feel a certain type of way about Christopher Ruocchio taking things from Frank Herbert and from his story. But I also knew that Frank Herbert took things from other people. But does that make my concerns any less valid? The other thing that is important to note is that the vibes of Empire of Silence, the setting, feels completely different. And I think that the lessons that are going to be taught in Empire of Silence, just from where I'm at right now, I think I'm like 30-something% through, they feel completely different. The relationships among the characters are completely different. He is not a copy-paste. Hadrian Marlowe, the main character, is not a copy-paste of Paul Atreides. I can say that with my full chest, and no one in the story so far, character-wise, feels taken out of that book. It's just those specific elements. So I wanted to get y'all's opinion. And I know that a lot of fantasy books take from other fantasy books, like the hero's journey and the adventure and the expedition and everything like that. A lot of that has taken inspiration from Lord of the Rings, because though Lord of the Rings may have not been J.R.R. Tolkien may not have been the first person to do it, he was the person to make it what it is. And that was another thing that I wanted to mention, is that there are other times when I see things in books that are directly taken from something else, but it doesn't feel the same as Christopher Ruocchio taking shields from Frank Herbert. One example is a lot of fantasy will use fairy tales within their stories, or folklore, or things like that. And I think a lot of the times they build upon those aspects and elements. So in the first Witcher book, the first short story collection, The Last Wish, which I did read and really enjoyed, there were a lot of fairy tale references. So it was very clearly taken from like Snow White or Sleeping Beauty or something like that. I can't remember the specific fairy tales that were taken, but there were very specific things within it that was very obvious, but it didn't feel like he was retelling the story, and it didn't feel like he was taking from the story. It just kind of was like, oh, here's a little Easter egg, kind of. And again, some people may call what Christopher Ruocchio has done Easter eggs within his story, but it just feels like stealing. And at the same time, I do know that Christopher Ruocchio was 19 when he wrote the first book. And so, in my opinion, I also think about it and think it's kind of funny, because I'm like, well, if he was an 18-year-old kid and he's like, yeah, I like shields, I want them in my story too. Like, who's to say that that's actually a problem? And I'm not saying that any of this is a problem. I'm saying it really does make me stop and think, how do I feel about this? How do other people feel about when stories take very specific things and have very specific influences, but maybe don't even use the influences as an influence, but just actually take from their influences, if that makes sense. Because it doesn't feel like he's building upon shields. They're just the exact same. And I haven't seen the Star Wars references yet. At least I haven't really noticed them. It's been a while since I've watched all the movies, and I am not rewatching the new ones. I'm sorry, but I'm not. I really wanted to make this an open-ended conversation, and not like me saying this is wrong and this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I've noticed this. I haven't experienced this before within a book. I haven't seen things be legitimately taken, and I'm aware of it, because I'm not saying that the books I've read haven't taken from other things, but I'm saying it hasn't been so in my face, like taking shields in the specific way that shields are used, or the Skalitz, or the same scene basically being done, and things like that within Empire of Silence. And part of me thinks, well, what if shields just became like a normal staple of sci-fi? And then just most sci-fi authors used the shields, then they wouldn't feel as derivative. It wouldn't feel like any sort of plagiarism or things like that. And I would not say that there's plagiarism happening, because Empire of Silence is so different. It is. And it's so good. Like, don't get me wrong. I am loving the story so far. Like, I actually cried recently, and I never, ever cry in books. And it actually got me in my feels. And I have really, really enjoyed where the story is going. Things are happening, and I'm not knowing what's going to go on. It doesn't feel predictable at all. And I think if something was plagiarized or extremely derivative within the story, you would know what's going to happen within the story. So I am not saying that, but I am saying, let me know what you think about things taken from other things, and give me examples. Give me examples of, Tolkien taking from someone, or, Tad Williams taking from someone, or Scott Lynch taking from someone, or, any of these very popular names, Joe Abercrombie, whatever. And I haven't read everyone yet and I never will. But I don't know why I tangent like that. But I want to know examples of times that you have noticed this within your book, and it's actually made you stop and go, why is this in here? What is the purpose of this? Because for me, I think Empire of Silence could do without all of the, uranium is spice. We could do without that. We could do without the crawlers. We could do without the shield. We could do without the basically the ornithopters. We could do without all of that. And Empire of Silence is its own story. Even with those things on the side, it's its own story. But why? Why take when you have an amazing story on its own? That's my take. I think that's legitimately my feelings are, why take? Because you have something so good, you don't need these things. And maybe it is just because he thought it was cool and wanted to put them in there because he was 19. I can't fault him for that. So yeah, just let me know what you think. Let me know your own examples. Let me know your thoughts and feelings and opinions and everything. Today's meant to be a short video. Just really the main substance of this video is just being able to talk with you guys. So let me know what you guys think, and we'll talk in the comments. God bless.